Here's a couple things I wanted to talk about. We're doing these studies, and I'm assuming is happening to you or something in your experience, because I know it happens to me all the time, and I'm getting questions about it. I sort of go through the study, and I think to myself, wow, that is really not what I was hoping it would be. What do I do now? So for this one, for example, I feel like the yellow is a little bit too light, and everything is a little bit too light. This is too dark, but all sort of crazy, got messy. I think I was trying to just go too fast. So what to do? And you have several options, but what I'm going to do right here is try to do a graded wash over the entire thing. That's right, the entire thing. And hopefully you'll see what I mean. I'm going to go from a light yellow to a yellow-green to a darker yellow-green, darker green. And this is a little bit more realistic on what it's like when you're painting something and wanting to adjust something. So I certainly don't have to stop at the lines, and don't have to anyways, I'm going to shut up and paint. So remember, this idea to me, this is really sort of what I would consider more glazing, partly because kind of going in with a light. Glaze is sort of a light on top layer, right? Glazing on a donut, it's not like frosting. That's a different thing. I'm getting hungry. No, I'm not. But once again, using the same concepts, and as well as really trying to not brush into the paper, but just sort of skid along the top of things. And so I'm sort of doing that whole shape with, oh, look at that. I picked up some, even with a light touch, you're going to be activating a little bit of color. You could tell that there was a little bit of green in my brush when I came up to sort of re-wet the area to try to make sure that it was staying, that the whole thing was staying somewhat consistently watery. So at this point, I'm going to make a thirsty brush and kind of pick some of that up. And I'm going to come in and do some of my infamous color squeezing. This is the lemony yellow and some peacock blue. That is a bit too watery, but sort of keeping in mind how that things are drying on the paper, so I don't want to dawdle, but I don't want to panic either. There's no time to panic. There's some great movie where it says, "What are you talking about? This is the perfect time to panic." So it might be a perfect time to panic, but hopefully not. Always staying aware of what color is in my brush. Not just what color, but how watery that color is, and how using that brush on with the amount of watery color in the brush is going to react with the amount of watery color on the paper. And is it going to be letting go of color like a brush, or is it going to be picking up color like a sponge, because as I've talked about quite a bit, I really try to think of a brush as a brush sponge. So obviously, you know, it's not going to be sticking to those exact straight lines that I had before. But this is one way to sort of, and I'll be doing this a little bit with the painting as well. This is how even if you have a shape that you've painted and you've had sort of these you've made individual shapes out of it, you can certainly come back with a light layer of paint. I've heard some people call it a unifying layer. And it's still creating a gradation over a slight gradation over the other really geometric straight line shapes is kind of cool. I'm going to get my smaller number 4 brush here. Let me see. Still want to get rid of some of that water. But if I did want to bring in even a little bit more stronger green, and when I say stronger, more concentrated, lemony yellow and phthalo blue. I don't know if that's going to come out of the, not much. The synthetic brush holds a lot less water, which is a good thing when you're trying to control the amount of water that's coming out. Watery color especially. But there will be times when you're trying to drop in color thinking it's going to move from the brush to the paper, and it won't, and indeed it may do the opposite. That's when it's acting like a sponge, and you sort of need to reconfigure which has more water and which has more water and color, and which is gonna sort of win. Is the watery color on the paper gonna grab some watery color from the brush, or the other way around? That's enough blabbing on that. But yeah, could certainly come back and do it again, and all sorts of things. The other thing I'm going to discuss real quick here, which I haven't really discussed, is this. There's all kinds of scrubber brushes. When you want to come back and try to fix something, try to scrub out something, try to erase something. Some papers are easier than others. For as nice as this paper is, I am finding it pretty tricky to lift. So the reason I like this short filbert is anytime I'm scrubbing, when I'm trying to, if there's color around that accidentally got somewhere and I don't want it there, you can get a stiff, short bristled brush, agitate it, it will sort of lift it up, and then come back in with a paper towel and soak it up like that. You don't want to do it too much, or it starts beating up the paper, and the paper really starts pilling up, is what they call it. But that's one reason for this brush. And there's stronger scrubber brushes. I like starting with the least the least abusive, or the least abrasive. Okay, that was interesting. Abrasive and abusive, but so I do like starting out with this and trying to get as much done as I can with this. There are times when I will use a brush that's it's literally called a scrubber brush or scrubby. This is an example of one of them, and these are really stiff bristles and short and rounded, and they'll be able to pick things up a little bit more. There's a couple splatters right here. Let's see what happens. You can see how a little bit of the paper fiber sort of bundled up there. So you can't, once again, you can't do it too much. Let me see what happens with the this guy on this one. And you can certainly just try getting it wet and scrubbing a little bit with a stiffer synthetic brush, like this one. Oh, he's really not doing so well. Got some errant hairs there. That will usually get a little bit, but really not as much, I find, as I usually want. So I feel like a stiff synthetic brush can do a little bit. This can do, a scrubber brush can sometimes do a little too much. And this one can be just right. No, kidding aside, that's what I like to start with. This guy's a little bit softer and usually can get the job done. That's all for this one.